Last year, in the movie year 2023, although it was not the best movie year either, you did at least have a brilliant Oppenheimer and Napoleon with cool battle scenes and a good performance from Joaquin Phoenix. The movie year of this year, 2024, however, has been quite bad, and sadly most of what has been released has been bad or mediocre, meaning of course a lot of those anticipated movies have been way worse than you would expect. Actually, the only movie I've given an 8 out of 10 is to the movie The Ministry of Gentlemanly Warfare. The rest is as bad as movie year has been. We will sit down to talk about that today. The first movie that disappointed me more than most is the overhyped Dune Part Two that really only has the whistles. Dennis Villeneuve recently said that nobody remembers movies for giving me lines, which of course is not really true. Anyways, nobody remembers the movie for the acting. This is just a movie that doubles down wistfully where Rebecca Ferguson outshines everybody, and it's a boring story with weak entertainment that is miles off the best movies in the new age. The ratings are so inflated, particularly because people seem to love Zendaya, although she can do just one role. For me, this one is still a 5 out of 10, and a massive disappointment because I expected it to happen a lot more. The second disappointing movie, Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, features Anya Taylor-Joy as Furiosa in a main role, which is largely disappointing, minus of what Charlize Theron managed to do in the same role, which is a movie where actually the young Furiosa plays better than the older version of Furiosa in the movie. Lastly, there's a lot of dialogue, a lot of moments where there's nothing happening in the movie. Of course, you do see action as well, but half of the movie they're just driving around in the sand with no real meaning. So for me, this one is a 5 out of 10 and a very mediocre movie. There was also really high hopes for Annie in the main role there, but she never delivers. The third massive disappointment I will sink my teeth into is the Joker 2 movie, which is too hard to spell when it comes to the original title. But once again, we are left with a highly disappointing movie that everybody talked about for so long. The controversial choice of making it into a musical never really works, and I think in the future you should concentrate on diving into the dark side of Joker rather than the emotional side. Maybe this is more about Arthur Fleck rejecting Joker or Lady Gaga promoting his singing voice, or even maybe it is done just to fulfill the dream Lady Gaga once had of singing in a Joker movie. But whatever it is, it just does not work, and it is a very boring music movie slash psychoanalysis drama, and only is manageable to get through because of the role of the sleazy guard given by Brendan Gleeson. For me, this one was a huge disappointment, and it's a movie I feel is created for the Hollywood elites rather than for us as the people. So for me, it was a tough decision, but I had to give it a 4 out of 10. A controversial promotion came early this year in the form of Megalopolis, which hit the cinemas in September, and it was a hotbed of controversy surrounding this big production, which Coppola has had said to be planning since 1984. A story about a man set to build a mega city. For me, it was a story with potential, absolutely, and not perhaps a too hard miss as those other movies I have mentioned so far. But you do feel it is too much romance. It is sometimes hard to understand what is going on when a main character manages to stop time, for example, then loses the ability and regains it again. But if it had indeed explained things better, it could have been a masterpiece in the making, as you had such good characters as Caesar and Cicero. Sadly, however, it was nowhere near what felt as a complete movie, and it must be described as a flop, given how much it took to make it. But for me, it had potential at a 6 out of 10, even though I'm still disappointed that it was not better made. In Godzilla vs. Kong, our next talking point today, which is a huge miss because it is marketing a huge fight between Godzilla and Kong, which is almost non-existent. Mostly, it is rather a fight between Godzilla and that red monkey, which appears to be the villain in the story. Anyways, there's a lot of emotional talk, and yeah, they did a good marketing job on this one, but it is unnecessary to advertise this big fight when it is so little part of the movie. And it is more about this girl with some sort of magical ability for her to connect with another tribe. The visuals are not that entertaining either, and this is mostly a fan-based movie that will please Godzilla and Kong fans, but those general people that are new to this stuff, they will not find too much good to watch in this movie. For me, this one was a real miss and a clear 4 out of 10. The next quite large disappointment this year comes in the form of Gladiator 2, a movie that should have been made much earlier, 24 years after the highly successful Gladiator. Ridley Scott does what seems more and more like a cash grab. Paul Mescal plays Lucius, the son of Maximus, and there's no real attempt to make him into a character that can be as good as Maximus. Same can be said about those evil twins, which looks out of place. When you have all those flashbacks with the Maximus characters in the first one, it seems way more like an emotional homage to the first movie, And that is the number one problem with the sequel. You don't really feel that either Denzel Washington as Macronus, Peter Pascal, or Connie Nielsen are that invested in the acting either. They all look bleak compared to how Joaquin Phoenix and Russell Crowe managed to act in the first one. And for me, it is just not as good as the first one with a 6 out of 10 on the rating. The next movie we will sharpen our teeth into is the one called Terrifier 3, which is the follow up to the controversial but yet excellent horror thriller movie called Terrifier 2, but sadly it is not as good. The main problem is that the banter and tension between Art and Sienna is gone. They are not involved in any action until the last hour, which is really the only good part of the movie. In large spots, they try to make it more like Smile 2, where you see the main character having this trauma and she sees things that are not there, her dead friends and such. At times, it is way more like an emotional drama rather than the first movie with Sienna. One where you did go big on thriller elements, the still nasty scenes like the shower scene and other artwork killings, as well as the last half hour where Art is testing the sick divine sponge again that makes the bones of other people crack. But by and large, the movie is 3 oceans away from the second movie. And given that I gave the last one an 8 out of 10, for me this one left me highly disappointed. Actually so disappointed that I gave it only a 5 out of 10. Our last post on this desecration of the movie year 2024 is called Smile 2, and it is also perhaps the most disappointing one. It is a sequel that rides on the hype from the first movie. Not that the first movie was the best horror movie of all time either, but it was at least entertaining and scary in some parts. Where you saw the main characters battle with a wrong man in a cabin where a therapist was sitting on top of her car, and there was a lot of jump scares in a movie more intended to scare you. This one fails to do that, actually. And it worked much better when the main character actually believed in the first movie that there was this entity trying to kill her for most of the movie. Perhaps people are hyped for Naomi Scott for some reason, but the movie just comes off with an arrogant pop star vibe when she is going insane, and you never have any sympathy for the main character. Lastly, it is not entertaining at all with very hefty emotional dialogue, and it is a movie that tones down the horror to the point it is questionable to even call it a horror movie. Well, guys, now you've heard about my desecration of the mediocre movie year 2024, and I hope 2025 will be much better. It was also, by the way, a huge bummer that the movie Ballerina, that could have been a hit, made by Chad Stahelski, was moved into the next movie year of 2025.